like the fact we're always fresh. We're always trying to bring new people in. And when you do it unscripted with people like Jimmy Jeans here, you just never know what's going to happen. And there's no way that we're recreating what anyone else has done. When we just fly unscripted, Jimbo. So yes, there you go. Serotonin, I like it. The happiness factor. That's what I am. But Jimmy, I mentioned little people there, right? When I was listening to, or not listening, but when I was reading a bit of the book today, it mentioned cavernous areas under the planet, ancient civilizations and giants and little people. And then totally out of the blue, randomly, you said to me, Kev, I've been looking at something to do with LA. Now, I need you to send me that article again, if you don't mind, James. I'd love for you to give the audience a really kind of break it down. Give them the highlights of what we were talking about.
Well, I mean, I noticed this thing, and, typically we were doing this Wednesday thing, and so I wasn't going to be here today, and I had noticed this thing earlier. And, it was interesting to me because it was talking about Los Angeles, and there's always so much lore around Los Angeles being, the center of the social engineering machine, being the place where so much magic has been done in this canyons. And, when you look at the whole overall schematic of Los Angeles, there seems to be this dark aspect to it. Church of Satan went down there. You had all this stuff going around. And so when I see something that says this old man, this is going on in 1933, believe it or not. So this older gentleman had developed this new piece of equipment that he was going to use, to see if he could find minerals and oil down in Los Angeles. And so if you know about Los Angeles, there's the La Brea tar pits there. So there's there's oil there, there's stuff there. So this was, back in the day, so it really wasn't all that much construction going on in Los Angeles. And this guy actually found some stuff under there. Now he started to find tunnels, and he started to find these different catacombs, and then he met up with this Native American guy who told him some stories about these lizard people. So yeah, the underground catacombs of LA's lizard people is what we're talking about. And so he went around the whole city. He got a permit from the city. The city said if he'd have to give them 50% of the booty, so to speak. And that's just kind of the brief overview. I sent you the article there. I could see you got the map up. And
yep, I've dropped the map over at tfrlive.com /chat. I'm going to drop it in the Discord server right now as well. Deep woo to open up today's Kev Baker show with Jimmy Jeans. And what gets me about this is it comes from the Los Angeles magazine. Now, this doesn't strike me as being the kind of publication that I would frequent every day in the constant search for more and more woo, deeper and darker. So I'm really interested in what this has got to say here. And I tell you, even the kind of byline, in my mind when Jimmy was talking about this to me today, I was thinking about Musk. Because Musk does a lot of tunneling in and around LA, right? And it says, the underground catacombs of LA's lizard people. What a title. It's almost got it all right there. It says Elon Musk didn't invent the idea of drilling holes into LA. George Warren Shuffelt did it first. So
well, just think about the Doors and Jim Morrison. He said he was the Lizard King, didn't he? That's right, the Lizard King.
And of course, can't forget, when it comes to him, wasn't his father quite high-ranking in the military?
Yeah, he was the admiral who fired the first torpedo in the Vietnam War and that false flag.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, see, that's what we're talking about. So let's get into this here, folks. Hold on tight. We're hitting Mach 3 on the woo scale right from the off. So it says one of the more colorful urban legend of LA is that the lizard people is that of the lizard people, an advanced race of humans who created an underground city here some 5,000 years ago. According to the story, incalculable riches and gold tablets with the origins of human civilization carved into them were just waiting to be discovered by some savvy treasure hunter. This makes Oak Island look like a bunch of children playing in the sand pit. It really does. So it says, this super race, allegedly related to the Mayans, had purportedly fled a catastrophic meteor shower and created several such communities along the Pacific coast, including the one in Our Deer Basin. The so-called lizard people were so intellectually and technologically advanced that they used mysterious chemicals to dig a network of some 285 fully equipped and vast chambers, large enough to accommodate 1,000 families who lived off a store of food and water placed there by the tribe. Now, this story, loosely drawn from a Hopi Indian myth by a tribesman chief called Chief Greenleaf, what a great name, was told to a geophysicist and mining engineer named George Warren Shuffelt in 1933. As it turns out, Shuffelt had invented what he called a radio X-ray machine, which he believes could detect underground tunnels. Now add to that the promise of an ancient sheepskin map held by two other treasure seekers, and you have the tale that went viral, well, by 1933 standards. Shuffelt's quest for the lizard people's golden treasure was picked up and followed closely by the Los Angeles Times and in turn the Associated Press, which spread Shuffelt's search for the lost catacombs and their inhabitants all across America. The entire underground city, appropriately shaped like a lizard, reached from Elysian Park, the lizard's head, to today's Central Library, the tip of the tail. Shuffelt swore up and down that he had discovered the exact location of 1,900 square feet of tunnels, rooms with 9,000 feet of floor space, and 16 places where gold was stored, all by using his radio X-ray machine. He created this map of the passages below the surface of Fort Moore Hill. Now, after gaining permission from the County Board of Supervisors, he began to dig up on North Hill Street, overlooking Sunset, Spring and North Broadway, that was watched like an engineering soap opera by folks in the grip of the Depression. The wildly speculative newspaper reports insisted that the buried treasure was Spanish gold, planted in the colonial period, and that the crew felt that they were ready to bring it out after 28 feet of shaft was sunk. So, the deal made by Shuffelt and his men, and his small team of associates, was a 50-50 split with the county, but the dig was plagued by challenges. No, I offer you curses, ladies and gentlemen. Dense boulders and plenty of mud after the shafts passed the water table. Now, some experts claimed the dig must reach 1,000 feet, and while Shuffelt did accomplish 250 feet, he found no gold or tunnels. It says when winter turned to spring, the digging stopped, as the money dried up and the newspaper stories vanished, along with the X-ray radio, or the radio X-ray. So G. Warren, as he was called in the days of the Great Lizard City Quest, stayed around Los Angeles and finally passed on in North Hollywood on November 1957, leaving behind an absolutely fabulously great story and this memorable map. Now, Jimmy, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I'm very open to the suggestion that this cat might well have been onto something.
It's definitely onto something. And I mean, the thing about the meteor, they didn't go too much of it in the article, but what they were saying was that they had built this city. These were these Mayan lizard
They
people.
built this city on rock and roll.
Exactly.
Lizard City. Dun, 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 dun,
Lizard
dun.
King. But yeah, no. So the Mayan lizard people had come up and built this city on the coast, and then when these meteor showers came down, there were earthquakes and there were tidal waves, which washed over this futuristic city that was built by these Mayan migrators. And so that is the city that's buried beneath these other catacombs that he had discovered. These two catacombs had like bled together. So one of the things was that they were alluding to these tablets, these golden tablets that had these symbols written on them. And they kind of showed some other stuff that looked like the emerald tablets, the same kind of futuristic materials where these plates had been forged, I guess, for posterity, as far as for people to know in the future. So there's a lot of questions about it, and I mean it's interesting in a lot of ways, just because there is so much magic and things that happen down in Los Angeles. I'm starting to, it's one of these places where you hear about energy vortexes. Like, for example, you go to Sedona. Sedona, Arizona is one of these places, and you go there and you get full of energy when you go there. Well, Los Angeles is the exact opposite of that. Los Angeles is like a black hole. It sucks all the energy out of you. It sucks it out of you until you're nothing left but a husk. And then they toss you on the pile. Say, time for a fresh batch of new people. But, yeah, so down there you can see there's quite a bit of activity. There's lots of money. There's lots of energy. There's lots of magic. There's lots of for some reason, creative people just swoop to that area. They go there. Is it because they're going to be stars, or are they drawn there by the energy of this place? It's hard to know. It's hard to understand, but all I know is this. He was the Lizard King. So, kind of makes you wonder.
It's a fascinating story, dude. Fascinating story. Especially when you start to look at how it mentioned the Hopi there as well. The only thing that I would probably, and it's not even a point of contention, but I think the 5,000 year kind of window of time that it puts on it, I think it could be far more ancient. Far more ancient. You look at the work of Graham Hancock before America, and he takes it way, 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 way back, hundreds of thousands of years, at least 100,000 years ago, where you're starting to see activity. And again, you've got to put yourself back into the context of being in 1933. Probably saying 5,000 years back in the past would have been quite extravagant for the day. Wow, that's a long time ago you're going for there. By their standards, Because, I mean, you're talking about way predating the pyramids and things like that. And I don't know, dude. I don't know. So I like it. I'm very open to, at one time or other, people, entities, different species going underground. I think it's only natural that this would happen way back in the day. Shelter, makes sense to go there. If there was anything happening on the planet, underground. Now, whether they're still there today or not, Jimmy, I don't know. But I'm very open to us finding evidence of it for sure.
Well, I mean, when you look at these civilizations, these advanced civilizations for their time, and they're, I mean, the fact that they could migrate up to North America and have a place here. I mean, the meteors that supposedly came down did come down. I mean, there's evidence of that. I'm pretty sure. I think it's in Nevada. If I'm not sure, there's a giant hole. I think it's either Nevada or Utah. It's a giant hole from the actual. This is the meteor strikes that they were talking about. That were associated with why these people had gone underground originally. I was kind of tripping on it, though. There was, beyond David Icke, there's always been this, when you look at, like, for example, there was an episode of the original Star Trek where Kirk has to go down this planet, and he has to fight this other captain of this other starship who's a lizard. It's a giant lizard. It's called the Gorn.
I think it's really easy and really lazy to dismiss the reptilian thing by just going, oh, David Icke, isn't it? You know, because there's a plethora of information, you know, that he pulled on, you know, ancient stories, lore, myth, that I think it at least makes a good case for at one time something like that been down here. Look at the religious texts about serpents and everything as well. Over in America, Mesoamerica, all the pyramids, what was it we talked about last time? Quetzalcoatl? Isn't that the one that comes down the side, and on the solstice you get the snake effect? There's something with these snakes, dude. Think about in North America as well, the Serpent Mound. That's another one. You know, one of these megalithic sites paying homage to something, you know? So I don't know, dude.
Yeah, slaying the dragon. I mean, you know, when they were slaying dragons, you know, were dragons the same size as people? I mean, were they giants going up against some lizard type thing, fire-breathing lizards? I mean, I was thinking about the Fifth Element, too. The Fifth Element...
hold that thought, Jim. Hold that thought. We'll be right back, ladies and gents. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Second part of today's KBS with Jimmy Jeans here, riding shotgun. And an amazing first segment, dude. You bring a story about the lizard people, or the lizard city of Los Angeles, man. That's a great way to start the show, because that takes us into the realms of lost civilizations, forbidden histories, and dare I say it, Jimmy, our forbidden origins.
I know. Well, I'm super excited too. You know, I was talking about something before the break, but what I want to talk about right now is, you just reminded me, you got a great show coming up, man, and you should talk about that a little bit. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you right now, you better mark your calendar for this, and tell your friends and tell your friends' friends, because this is going to be some serious new information. I don't think very many people really have gotten a chance to take a listen to or take a look at this presentation, Kev, that's coming up. And I personally have. I'm going to tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, mark your calendars, Kev. Let them know, Kev. Let them know what's going to happen, man.
Oh, Stephen and Evan Strong, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from down under, are going to be gracing us with their presence on Monday the 15th of March if you're here in the UK or over in the US and Canada. But if you're in Australia, that'll be the morning of Tuesday the 16th of March, 9 a.m, where Stephen and Evan are. We're going to be talking about our forgotten origins. We're also going to be getting into our alien ancestry. And I don't like to call it the alternative timeline of our story, of the planet's story. I like to call it the timeline, because any idea that we've got or have been given over the years in education or from mainstream sources, I think it's far removed from the truth. And I think these two characters, along with the shows that we've done recently with Nacy from the Initian Abbey, and we've had Donnie and Luna, original people speakers coming from Australia as well. Add to that more original speakers coming from Australia. We've had Jess, we've had Dan, we've had Bruce Fenton. I'm telling you folks, we've been on this topic now. We've been drilling down for a while, a good while. And this is going to bring a lot of things into focus for us. It really is. It's going to be mind-blowing. I can't tell you how good it's going to be. But if it's anything near the level of information that these two guys can put out, it's going to blow your mind. Absolutely melt your mind. Donnie down under, Jimmy, he is an absolute huge fan of these two, and I think of the shows we've had with Donnie on and the information that he brings to the table. So if he's putting his stamp of approval on Australians talking about really culturally sensitive stuff. For me, can't get any more credit than that. And that's why I just can't wait. Just can't wait, dude. Can't wait to get into it.
I can't either. And you know, your audience has been released from the bondage of the plantation. And you know, they're not in the idea of this homogenized, easy to understand history. We all know there's something more to what's going on than what we've been told. And, you know, like we say, everything's a storyline, you know, so they got their storylines together. They're getting a room. They go ahead and they make sure all their stories match. And then they create a simple storyline for everybody to go by. But we can see clearly across this planet that I mean, just take a look at those stones in Peru and tell me how, you know, tell me how in Machu Picchu. Tell me how somebody can just. You wouldn't be able to.
Well, Jimmy, just let me throw in a quote, right? A really synchronistic quote, dude. And I read this about 5 minutes before you came on the show today. Okay, it says here, fictions are necessary for the people, and the truth becomes deadly to those who are not strong enough to contemplate it in all its brilliance. In fact, what can there be in common between the vile multitude and sublime wisdom? The truth must be kept secret, and the masses need a teaching proportioned to their imperfect reason. That comes from Albert Pike.
Well, I have to say,
how weird is that, dude? How weird.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well.
I mean, seriously, I mean, that is why information is secret. That is why. I mean, you know, it's not like there isn't somebody on the planet who knows what's been going on. You know, and it goes on a lot longer than anybody thinks. Nobody I mean, I heard, as a matter of fact, I mean, I think, you know, we were just randomly discussing it organically a couple of weeks ago about these figures being accredited with making these discoveries, when in reality those people didn't discover anything. They were just the poster boy for the time to, you know, get the information out. So I'm excited and I can't wait. And I'm going to tell you, I heard the presentation, some of it, about some of parts of it, and I'm telling you right now, you guys are going to be blown away. Believe me, if I'm blown away, you'll be blown away. Trust me. It's great. It's exciting, man.
It's going to be really good. It's going to be really good. And, you know, our history, it's far removed from what we think. Even the planet itself is probably far different, far more magical and mysterious than we think. And, you know, because I was getting ready to talk about Antarctica today, one thing on my mind, Jimmy, had been Admiral Byrd. Right? Cool story, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't believe you're bringing him up, because what I was just thinking about was Coneheads. Go ahead.
No. Well, the reason I bring up Admiral Byrd is because, you know, he's got that Operation High Jump, and they go down to the South Pole and everything else, and we've got craft that can fly pole to pole and all that good stuff, right? And a lot of people talk about that. And in opening today, I kind of said how I like we're kind of different here. We look at things from a different angle. We don't want to sound like all the rest of the shows and talk about Antarctica that you've heard it all before. So how about we talk about the Atlantis of the North? Well, what you saying, Kev? What, you mean you haven't heard that there was a rumoured great continent at the North Pole as well? Yeah, there's a story you don't hear too often. So we're going to dig into a little bit of this, Jimmy. Now, I've still got the Australian woo to come back to, but I know you're wanting to jump in here before we go on with this one.
Yeah, Atlantis didn't sink, it froze, right? But look, you know, I want to bring these up, man, because listen, these weird, you know, look at all these things that we've thought were just out of this world. Giants. You know, you see here people talk about giants. I'm like, you know, I didn't take the subject seriously, but turns out I was wrong. There's plenty of evidence for giants.
The other thing is that Bigelow, Jimmy. They think that Bigelow's got one of the Lovelace giants from the set of caves over in America. I mean, what's that all about?
That's what I'm saying. The evidence for these, what I was going to talk about is these skulls, these cone-headed skulls. because there used to be on Saturday Night Live, they used to have these cone heads on there. And, you know, when you saw it back then, you're laughing at, look at, you know, the cone heads or whatever, because it's super funny. It was a funny bit. But then I started kind of thinking about it the other day. I was like, that's kind of random. Where do they just come out of these, you know, where do they just come up with these cone heads on a skit on Saturday Night Live? You know, there must be something to these cone heads. You look at that Admiral Byrd interview on Long Jeans, and look at that dude's head, man. It's shaped just like a cone head. And he's the only one who supposedly flew down into the center Earth and had a meeting. And he saw woolly mammoths eating tropical vegetation as he floated by with these other, I guess there was some sort of a, I don't know how it happened, but they were able to take control of his plane and sort of float it through this atmosphere.
Can't believe you went full Admiral Byrd conehead on me, dude.
These coneheads, though, I'm just saying, I used to think there really wasn't much to these coneheads, Kev, but I think these skulls that are around the world, these giant egg-shaped heads, maybe those have something to do with these, because you don't know what it looked like when the flesh was on there. Maybe they were like lizards or something.
Very true, dude. Very true. Very true, and maybe they weren't down at the South Pole. Maybe they were at the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
A story here. I've not read it. I just dug up the headline. It was one of the things I hurriedly put together for today in case we had no guest. But I thought fits well now. Fits well with what we're getting into. But it says the quest for the mysterious lost Atlantis of the far north. Beyond the wall, ladies and gentlemen. It says as long as humans have realised that there are worlds out there beyond the confines of what we know, there have been those willing to go out and explore them. Our never-ending push past the boundaries of our own reality have brought back stories from intrepid adventurers of elusive, unknown places from our wildest imaginations. History is populated by tales of mysterious lost lands and hidden places removed from civilization, with some of the greatest travellers' tales revolving around enigmatic realms that have managed to evade understanding, to lie out on the periphery of the known universe. One such tale concerning an alleged lost, ghostly continent found in the inhospitable frozen wastes of the far north, which captured an imagination of the era and spurred a doomed expedition to try and find it. Jimmy's dropping in cone heads and things, and that's why I got distracted there, folks. Stop it, Jimmy. Stop it. Stop that. So it says, the strange story begins in 1906 when the American explorer Robert Peary attempted to become the first person to reach the North Pole. He was unable to do so, defeated by storms and dwindling supplies, but despite not achieving his intended goal, he would later claim to have made a groundbreaking discovery during the return voyage. Upon returning, he would make the incredible claim that while sailing east of the Ellesmere Island and about 130 miles northwest of Cape Thomas Hubbard, he had looked out across the grey expanse of a storm-lashed sea to observe a previously unknown massive landmass, complete with soaring mountains and deep valleys, which he christened a new island or perhaps even a continent, a place he called Crocker Land, named after a banker who had helped fund his expedition. So at the time of his alleged sighting, he was not equipped to approach or explore further, and in the meantime the idea of a lost land lying out in the polar sea was generating a lot of discussion and excitement, and it even appeared on some maps at the time. So there was some scepticism to Peary's claim in 1909 when Frederick Cook and Peary went on a race to be the first to the North Pole, both of them claiming to have reached it. The thing was, Cook insisted that he had been all through the area where Crocker Land was supposed to be, but had seen nothing. And Peary was adamant that it was real, and he had he had accrued plenty of those who believed him. Now, one of these was the famed American Arctic explorer, sailor, researcher, and lecturer Donald Baxter McMillan, who began putting together an expedition of his own to prove it, managing to gain sponsorship by such venerable institutions as the American Museum of Natural History and the American Geographical Society and the University of Illinois Museum of Natural History. The expedition meant to confirm the existence of Crocker Land and map its exact position, with McMillan calling the mysterious realm, quote, the world's last geographical problem. Now, Jimmy, have you ever heard of this?
No, I have
Same
not.
here, dude. Same here. And we're avid consumers of content, right? Weird.
I mean, the thing is there are so many I've never heard of it.
I've never heard of it, dude. Doesn't spring to mind at all. We're nearly there, Jim. We're nearly there, and then we'll get into it. It says, when the expedition left aboard the steamer Diana from the Brooklyn Navy Yard on July the 2nd, 1913, they did so with the backing of some of the most respected organisations in the world, well supplied and best equipment money could buy, and a crack team of seasoned professionals and experts. If anyone was going to find Crocker Land again, it was this team, and they left to much fanfare. But things would start to go sour almost from the beginning. Just 2 weeks after departing, the Diana crashed into some rocks along the Labrador coast while trying to dodge an iceberg. Now, due to a captain who was drunk behind the wheel and forcing them to change ships, they managed to reach Etah, Greenland, where they built a makeshift shed to use as a base of operations, complete with a radio system that sadly wouldn't work. So at this time, the seas had frozen solid, forcing them to head out overland on dog sleds on March of 1914, where their woes only continued. The weather conditions were horrific at the time, making the forbidding no man's land even worse than usual. Many of the team got frostbite, others dropped from exhaustion, and a good number of the expedition quit and headed back. Now, when they finally reached the Arctic Ocean, there were only 4 of them left. 2 of the original team members and 2 Inuit guides named P and I, because there's no danger I can pronounce their names. So they nevertheless set out across the grey expanse of the frozen sea upon their dog sleds, braving the unknown and refusing to give up on their mission. It was as they penetrated out into the cold domain, dodging thin ice patches, stretches of open water, and uneven terrain while hauling the sleds over steep hills and dropping caches of supplies and building igloos along part of the route, that an exciting sighting was made of what they believed to perhaps be the elusive Crocker's Land. One day, an expedition member by the name of Fitzhugh Green claimed to have sighted a mysterious landmass in the distance. Although it would turn out to be rather tenuous, and McMillan would write of this. April 21st, 1914 was a beautiful day. All mist was gone, and the blue or clear blue of the sky extended down to the very horizon. Green was no sooner out of the igloo than he came running back, calling in through the door, "We have it!" Following Green, we ran to the top of the highest mound. There could be no doubt about it. Great heavens! What a land! Hills, valleys, snow-capped peaks extending through at least 120 degrees of the horizon. I turned to Piawatu. I like how it spells out slowly there. I got it. Piawatu anxiously and asked him toward which point we had better lay our course. After critically examining the supposed landfall for a few minutes, he astounded me by replying that he thought it was Pujok, mist, a Fata Morgana illusion. So he took a shoe, He didn't take anybody's shoe. That's the name of an Inuit, folks. He took a shoe, offered no encouragement, saying perhaps it is. Now, Green was still convinced that it must be land. At any rate, it was worth watching. The day was exceptionally clear, not a cloud or trace of mist, and if land had been seen, now's our time. Yes, there it was. It could even be seen without an eyeglass or without a glass, extending from southwest true to north-northeast. Our powerful glasses, however, brought out more clearly the dark background in contrast with the white. The whole resembling hills, valleys, snow-peaked or snow-capped peaks to such a degree that we had not been out on the frozen sea for 150 miles, we would have staked our lives upon its reality. As we proceeded, the landscape gradually changed its appearance and varied in context with the swinging around of the sun. Finally, at night, it disappeared altogether. I'm not going to keep going there, Jimmy, because it's a really long one, but A, I've never heard of it. But that's weird how they've seen it, and then it disappeared, right?
Yeah, I've never heard of it either. Am I muted?
No, you're okay.
Okay, good. Because I can't see. I got a page in front of my mute button. Yeah, no, I've never heard of it either, and it's an interesting tale. I'm still stuck on Admiral Byrd's Conehead, and because of that, I grabbed a whole bunch of stuff, and in the course of that, I found some interesting Scottish history that maybe we should get into on the other side of the top of the hour. But I mean, these civilizations in antiquity and beyond, these civilizations, and even, you know, it was funny because this whole social contagion of this thing called the mud flood happened a couple years ago with this somebody posting something saying, you know, investigate the mud flood. And then a bunch of people got onto this thing, and this whole Tartaria thing came along, which was, you know, really interesting, you know, in a lot of respects. And but these civilizations become, you know, covered with dirt, and we don't even know they're there. And I mean, you know, seems like we congregate in these same places from an energetic perspective, as far as the ley lines, the way the earth functions, the way it is. We end up in these same areas over and over again. And it seems like we like to be by the beach. I know I do, you know, but seems like we like to be by the coast. And so since a lot of times we're by the coast, when something, you know, dreadful happens and there's some sort of a situation, you know, these towns get flooded over and washed over in like a tidal wave situation like we saw over in Japan, you know. And then you know, years go by, thousands of years maybe, and gets covered with dirt, you know. And then somebody comes along, you know, moves in, you know, builds a house, starts digging a hole, they find the Colburn Bible or whatever it's in the bricks, you know, below the floor. So it's interesting, you know, these cone heads. You know, there are some interesting correlations. You know, we'll talk about it on the other side, man, if you want to, because there's these hats. We've talked about them before, Kev, on Freaky Friday. These giant golden hats. Why were they making these giant pointy hats, you know? Why does a wizard wear a pointy hat? You ever think about it? You ever wonder? I mean, maybe they were hiding something under that hat, boy. Maybe there's a cone head under there. You never know. I don't know. Well, but we'll find out on the other side of the break, won't we, Kev? Kev Baker, on you live.
I'm just sitting listening, dude. I don't know. I'm definitely on board with elongated skull type entities being here at some point, but I don't know if I'm fully on board with the wizard's hat being some kind of covering for a spiritual conscious antenna that said magician may have had.
I'm telling you, we've got the documents, ladies and gentlemen. So
Jimmy's got the documents. Jimmy's got the documents, ladies and gentlemen. Jimmy has got the documents. So, Jimmy, what's been happening over on your new show on Aftermath?
Well, it was funny, man, because last night you and Charlie were talking about comedy, And you know, comedy's, you know, got a special place in old Jimmy's heart, you know. And so, but it was really funny because you singled out somebody that we're doing a show on right now, and we're talking about Dave Chappelle, and what we're talking about is the wearing of the dress. And you won't believe it, Kev. I know you. I know it'll be beyond your ability to believe it, but I'm even going to work in organic robotoids into that conversation.
Jimmy, nothing you do surprises me, dude. I'm actually, I feel disappointed that you didn't extend that understanding that I'm in a place where nothing you do, nothing would surprise me.
Well, you know, think about it, man. When you sign a deal with the devil, okay, and he says wear the dress, you better say what color, buddy, or you're gonna find out the hard way. It might be character assassination, you know, and you're gonna get written out of the script for the rest of your life. So I just thought it was funny, man. You know, and congruent as well. And it's interesting. It actually references back to something you were saying at the beginning of the show, which is, you know, we're like-minded bros, and we're thinking the same direction. So it's funny you were talking about
similar directions, Jimmy. Similar directions. There's only one Jimmy. Your form of thinking is unique, brother, as is mine. As is mine, yes.
You know, I can't resist making a cartoon out of some sort of a coincidence. I mean, that's what I do. You know, we try to be creative in presenting. You know, it's the art of information. I think that was the coin that you coined that term a couple years ago. Yeah, the art of information. Not necessarily about me, but you just said it, and I went, yeah, man, that really describes what I do.
Good friend of mine says that I coined the term dramatastic as well. I do remember using it once. I don't know if I can claim it, though. We'll put it on a t-shirt, folks. We'll put it on a t-shirt. But listen, I'm only joking. What we are going to do, though, is I'm going to go and fill my coffee cup. I'm going to have a copious amount of PPP. Smoke them if you've got them. Get ready for hour number 2, because you ain't seen nothing yet. Oh, boy, oh, boy. No, we're going down more rabbit holes in the second part of the show. Jimmy has got the story of the hats. Yes, the story of the hats is coming up. The golden hats, ladies and gentlemen. Not an ordinary hat. Golden hats. And when the man with many hats tells you he's got a story about magical hats, I'd be a fool not to listen. So join us after the break for more from Jimmy Jeans and me, Kev Baker, right here on your Kev Baker Show on your #1 network, Truth Frequency Radio. They're going down, ladies and gentlemen. They're going down. And big heads and big hats are on the rise. Yes, indeed. And the man of many hats, Jimmy Jeans, comes to us live from the Magician's Broom Cupboard over there in FEMA State 9, I want to say. I don't know.
That's right, FEMA Region 9.
Oh, there you go. Look at that, dude. I'm bang on the money. But listen, Jimmy, we're about to launch into a segment on what sounds like it could be comical coneheads, but there is something to this. And if I laugh, folks, it's only because that's how I roll, okay? Because I can't really get into coneheads without having a little giggle along the way. But Jimmy, you dropped something in the chat here. Well, we'll kick this off with, you know, it used to be a thing that if you were kind of maybe the last one in the class, you didn't do well in a test or something, they would put on the dunce's cap. Remember all that jazz? If you're of a certain age, younger people will be thinking, what on earth's name are these two fossils talking about? Well, it used to be a thing, right? The dunce's cap, right?
Yeah, because they used to, I mean, in school, you used to get ridiculed in front of the class. You know, it's not like today where everybody gets a trophy. Back then, man, if you
character building back then, Jimmy, when you were a doofus, you were told you were a doofus.
Now, I'm not speaking from experience, okay, but they did used to put you in the corner and make you wear one of these hats, Kev.
I must admit, by the time I got there, they were already taking the sharp edges off the education system and making it a bit more namby-pamby. They got rid of the belt before I start. Well, in fact, I was in primary 2. I was 2 years into school when the belt went, I think. And then, of course, there was no hats getting passed around. But I remember my mum telling me about the dunce's cap and things like that, dude. And little did I know, maybe I did know, I always, you know, we do that many shows, sometimes I think I forget some of the stuff we've covered in the past. And then there's going to be guests out there going, that little idiot. I remember talking to him about that. Well, if this is the case when it comes to the dunce's cap's on me, right? But the dunce's cap isn't everything we think it is. Because the dunce cap wasn't always so stupid, says this article. And it says here, the dunce cap has long been a visual symbol of idiocy and punishment. It was once seen as something closer to a wizard's hat. So while today we understand the goofy-looking cone hat as denoting some kind of intellectual failing, it actually began as a symbol of respected scholars. So the origin of the dunce cap all begins with one man, John Duns Scotus. His incredible tri-part name signalling his Scottish heritage. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen. And the village where he was born, which is Duns, is what would eventually lead to the very concept of a dunce hat. Scotus was a Renaissance man centuries before the Renaissance ever took place. His exact birthday is unknown, but he was a Franciscan priest in March of 1291, when he was probably in his 20s. He later went on to become a master philosopher, a linguist, a theologian, and a metaphysical thinker in the 1300s, folks. Wow. So it says Scotus' life, or life's work, was all about the study of this world and the next. After reading theology and philosophy at Oxford, Scotus went on to teach at the University of Paris. He was later expelled from the country after siding with the Pope during a dispute between the Catholic Church and the King of France. He was eventually permitted to return and continued to teach in France until he was granted the title of Doctor of Theology and made a Franciscan master, after which he moved to a Franciscan school in Cologne, where he would spend the rest of his days. Now, during his studies and teachings, Scotus devised, among other theories, a convoluted philosophical explanation for the existence of a metaphysical God, as opposed to a material man in the sky. Perhaps more famously, he also envisioned a defense of the Immaculate Conception of the Virgin Mary herself. Due to the intricacy and complexity of his theories, Scotus was given the terrific papal title Doctor Subtilis, or the Subtle Doctor. His teachings became known as Scotism, while his most devoted students and followers were known as Dunsmen. For some reason, Scotus was also a proponent of the use of pointy hats, and it has been said that he was inspired by the use of such hats by wizards, and also conversely, that it was Scotus' love of the headgear that inspired the popular image of wizards wearing conical caps. Whichever version is true, they are both meant to denote wise men. In fact, Scotus believed that the pointed shape of the hat would, in some metaphysical way, act as a reverse funnel for knowledge, with wisdom flowing into the pointed tip and spreading into the brain below. These hats became popular among the Dunsmen, and were soon viewed as not just a symbol of Scotism, but as a signifier of higher intelligence. But pointed caps were only a badge of honour until the 1500s rolled around. Scotus' teachings had continued to be viewed favourably by ecclesiastical academics and the church in the centuries after his death in 1308. But by the mid-16th century, the popularity of thought among church scholars began to turn against the Duns men. I had no idea about this, Jimmy. The subtle doctor's intensely analytical writings and labyrinthine logic came to be seen as overly complex and increasingly in conflict with the more humanistic views emerging with Renaissance thought. The remaining Duns men, who continued to devote themselves to Scotist thought, began to be thought of as hopelessly behind the times or just plain stupid. Sounds like they were trying to, kind of alienate people away from the thought of looking into that kind of stuff. It's just stupid. Don't be looking into that. You'll be an idiot. They tend to do that, folks. Thus, the Duns men, or Duns, can you see it coming? Came to be associated with idiocy, and their pointy hats became symbols of this ignominious new reputation. So the term dunce, as we understand it today, appeared as early as 1624, when a dunce table was mentioned in the John Ford play, The Sun's Darling, in reference to a place for children, or dullards. That word must be banned by now, right? Surely that must be a banned word. Dullard. It's a great word. I'm going to start bringing it back. I see a lot of dullards on social media, ladies and gentlemen. See, I've even used it in context. So they were seated apart from the others. So one of the early mentions of the dunce cap itself came more than 200 years later, when it appeared in Charles Dickens' 1840 novel, The Old Curiosity Shop. It is noted as just one of the many things found on elementary school classroom wall, and described as being set on a shelf of its own, made from old newspapers and decorated with glaring wafers of the largest size. The casual way the dunce cap is mentioned speaks to the fact that its appearance and use was already common. So we get it. Jimmy, very misunderstood, the dunce cap.
Yeah, and I think you can reference that quote if you still have that quote that you read earlier, that you found earlier today. You could read that again, because you can see, man, listen, dunce, SCOTUS. Maybe when they went underground, they formed a secret society. And maybe that secret society is one that everybody knows about. Who knows? Maybe
who knows, dude? Who knows? But it says here, and this is Albert Pike again, fictions are necessary for the people, and the truth becomes deadly to those who are not strong enough to contemplate it in all its brilliance. In fact, what can there be in common between the vile multitude and sublime wisdom? The truth must be kept secret, and the masses need a teaching proportioned to their imperfect reason. That comes from Albert Pike, and he's talking about all of us folks. Us peons, the plebs,
The Scottish rite. But, the thing is, look, I want to point out how they took this in pop culture in the 1600s, and what they did was they did a 180 in pop culture, and they made something that actually had a value esoterically and from an occultic standpoint, with the assimilation of energies coming here and going there.
I think they've kind of done that with the all-seeing eye symbology as well. A lot of people just see it as kind of tropey and very kind of, how would you call it? Marketing, branding.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of esoteric kind of knowledge behind that symbol.
What used to be good is now bad, and that's exactly how they do it. They just all of a sudden, they just decide something's bad, and then everything that's written about it from that point forward describes it as bad. And that's how pop culture works. That's how we get socially engineered into an ideology. But going back to these cone heads and going back to these hats, now there's a gold hat called the Berlin gold hat, And there's some other gold hats that have been found around. And maybe it's because, I mean, you know, like we've talked about before, these metals have these principles and properties that work. What did they call this guy? The subtle doctor?
The subtle doctor, yep.
You know what I mean? And it's because, and he just, you know, Pike just said sublime, everything has to be, you know, undercover. So, I mean, the thing is that there's something to these hats and the wearing of them and the energies and the subtle energies of the earth.
Well, how about this as well then, Jimmy, right? How about this? How about thinking about it this way? Because when we were coming back and the music was playing and we knew we were going into the magic hats, the cone heads, that type of thing. You know, there's a story of Samson when the hair, you know, all coming off and things. But I was thinking about it a different way, right? You know, we often talk about Eastern ancient texts and lore and myth. You can look at the Tibetan monks as well. One thing the Tibetan monks all seem to do en masse is have a really clean-shaven head. They don't have any hair in the way of whatever's coming in from between, if that is a receptor. And I was thinking, well, why might that be then? Could it be that they see hair as being some way almost distorts the purer signal coming in? It's weird, but I think the head, our heads, and with our processors sitting just through a little bit of skull. Now, the skull's great, it protects the processor, but to some of the energies, the subtle energies and things that are coming in from space with the fluctuations of the magnetic field, I absolutely believe that there's something influencing our thought, something that is going in there, you know? Some kind of exchange, Jimmy, because we send stuff out into the ether as well. And that's why when we start thinking about things more, we seem to attract them towards us, you know, call it the law of attraction. But it's part of the simulation, dude. So I do think it's a two-way thing. I think we do receive information directly to the head, and our head puts it out. And as much as I laugh, I'm very open to being able to, like it said there, focus it to bring it in better, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting idea, too. And I think, you know, the last time we talked about this, I think I decided to grow my hair.
You did. I remember it now, dude. I remember it.
Okay, so this is how long my hair is since we last talked. So I decided that day to grow my hair, and I kept growing it. So, because what we were talking about, and it's interesting because you do bring up the shaving of the heads in certain areas. Okay, there's other areas where it's the growing of the hair.
Yep.
It's the beards. Like for example, Sikhs. They you know, that stuff goes back up underneath there and is wrapped up inside their hat.
Yep.
You know, and the thing is because to me, when we talked about this before, I came to this realization that maybe that's what it is, that when your hair is longer, that you're able to, receive some of these subtle energies, you know, because you see a lot of people's, native peoples have ultra long hair, and when they're in nature, they're able to sense all the same thing, you know, they're able to sense energies in nature that most people don't recognize. And that thing is because the esoteric energies that people talk about with magic exists all around us, and so it's really a matter of finding some way to focus in on that. And when you think about it, like think about the human being as remember those old on your radio back in the old days, they used to have these telescoping antennas where they'd be down inside and you'd pull it out, and on the top of it it'd have this little ball on the top of the antenna. Whenever you see antennas around, like on cars or whatever, look, there's always a little ball on top. Well, that's the same little ball we got on top of our heads, right? And we're like, you know, we're on Earth time. We're on Earth energy. You know, our spine and our feet on the ground and everything around us is causes an alignment, you know, and it causes a power to happen between individuals. So, you know, instead of having to use the internet or having to use a cell phone, I could just think myself over to you, Kev, and I could just, you know, say, hey, what do you do? You know, we could be doing the show, etherically, because we are transmitters and receivers, and as long as I can tune into your frequency, then I can dial directly into your energy field.
What frequency is that, Jimmy? The truth frequency, ladies and gentlemen, tfrlive.com. Remember to tell everyone whether you've got a cone head or not. But let's jump into one of these stories that you pulled up here, dude. I'm not going to read all of it, but the Berlin gold hat, a calendar from the Bronze Age. It says the Berlin hat was or is decorated extensively with circle motifs and symbols. It is roughly 74 centimeters tall, which is 29 inches, but weighs only half a kilo, 1.1 pounds. Because it's made of gold leaf, the cone-shaped hat is as thin as paper. The master craftsman who made it around 1000 BC created a seamless design that was ahead of its time. It looks like a space rocket, folks. So the motifs and decorations covering the conical hat were used to predict lunar and solar phases, meaning that the wearer presumably led astronomical ceremonies related to a Bronze Age sun cult extant in Central Europe. You can marvel at the masterpiece, blah, blah, blah. It's at the Museum Vor- und Frühgeschichte. That's the Museum for Prehistory and Early History in Berlin, folks. So that's one of the hats, but there's many of these hats. It says, learn the untold secrets of gold hats from the Bronze Age. 4 golden cone-shaped objects. Now listen, wait a minute though, Jimmy, right? Let's think about this in our way. Are they absolutely 100% hats? Because none of us were about at the time. I don't think there's any drawings that said that they were absolutely specifically to be used as hats. Do you know what I'm saying, Jim? What other uses could these have? Because listen, whatever they're for, coming from the Bronze Age, I don't think they're making these with chicken bones and rabbit's feet, right? You know what I'm saying, Jim? You know what I'm saying? These are high technology, man.
I do know what you're saying, and when I agree with you, and I would put forward that those symbols that are on the side of there are only an interpretation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it might not have anything to do with what they think, and it only looks like, somebody just looked in the hole and just goes, what the hell is that
when
thing,
it comes
man?
to a lot of that stuff, I think we've convinced ourselves that we know what we're into, and we've decoded languages and ciphers and everything else. But at the best of times, how can you check that? I mean, how can you actually stress test that? Do you know what I'm saying?
They're sitting there, they uncover it, and the one guy goes to the other guy, goes, what the hell is that thing? And the other guy goes, I don't know, man. Wait a minute.
And then you've got like local dialects and local customs and differences as well, Jimmy. But what else could... Right, okay, we'll go with the hat explanation, right? But it says here, 4 golden cone-shaped objects. See? I like that. It leaves it open-ended. Because the 2 here on the left, and I'm going to drop this over at TFR right now. See, because they don't have the kind of rim of the hat, if I was to pick one of them up and look at it, I wouldn't have gone for it being a hat.
Maybe that was a giant's condom back in the day.
I don't know what it was.
Thin. It might be a condom.
I'll find this to drop it over there. It's a weird looking thing anyway, but it says here they have been excavated at Bronze Age sites over the last 170 years. The only one found in central west of France is known as, or the one found in the central west of France is known as the Aventon of Vienne. And it was accidentally discovered when a tree toppled, or a tree uprooted in Aventon, France in 1844. So this was under a tree. Another one was discovered in 1835 in a region between northern Switzerland and the southern Rhineland of Germany, and is named the Golden Hat of Schifferstadt, also known as the Golden Hat of the boat operator City. What a really mundane crap name. And I bet you the dude that made it had no intention of it ever being called the Golden Hat of the Boat Operator City. So it says the Eseldorf Busch cone was excavated on the south hill of the Brandenburg, Bavaria in the spring of 1953. And finally, the Berlin cone, generally known as the Citizen of Berlin hat. Again, the maker of these things had no idea that they would go on to be called that. All four conical hats resemble each other in their form, symbolism, and technique. All four ceremonial hats have been hammered out of a single piece of gold. In 20 different punches, 6 ornamental wheels, and a decorative comb were used. I tell you, whatever their function, they're beautiful. Aren't they? I mean, when you think about that, Jimmy, like, long time ago, some dude or some dudette stood making this. Crazy, dude. One eye in the back of your head looking for predators and animals out to get you and eat you. And yet, banging away and creating this thing. There you go, folks. Another hat.
Well, let me just say, I mean, you didn't just pull gold out of your, out of your rabbit hole, did you? I mean, gold was, they had to get it out of the ground, they had to melt it, and they had to get it in a situation where it could be.
Well, look
molded.
at this one, right? Look at this, Jimmy. The Aventon gold cone, right? Get this for arrogance, though. I said my problem comes because it doesn't have a brim on it, right? So the experts have said, well, the brim's missing. Well, maybe it didn't have one. It says here the object was damaged, right? And it says a comparison with other finds suggests that the brim is missing. Only if it was ever meant to have one. Again, that's us, our interpretation. Well, it looks like one of the other hats. It must have been a hat, so brim's missing.
I'm telling you, it's these conehead lizard people. We're wearing these gold hats going.
That looks like an ancient torpedo. That looks like something that goes hypersonic out of a submarine nowadays, dude.
Seriously, I mean, it's unbelievable and uncanny, and you wouldn't even believe it. It's like a freak show at the circus right now with these things. Just look at. You could go, hurry, come on in and see the giant hat.
See, now, if somebody said to me, what are you looking at here, Kev? What are you looking at? And I said, maybe some interpretation of what the Tower of Babel would have looked like. At no bloody time would I have thought that's a garment that anyone intends to wear on their head. It's nearly a metre tall. It's nearly as tall as me, Jimmy. It looks extremely silly with that in my head.
Well, maybe it sat in the room and you got energy from the obelisks in Egypt with that thing.
Well, it measures time in solar months, and we need naysay here for that. But it says the astrological purpose. The ancient historic gold cones are more than 3,000 years old, made of paper-thin gold, and originally had borders. They vary from 60 centimetres to 90 centimetres, and each is decorated with circles and other motifs representing the sun and the moon. And it says, as mentioned in the book God's Machine, from Stonehenge to the crop circles, the 1739 sun and half moon symbols represented in the 19-year cycle of the moon match the Medtronic cycle invented by Meton, the Greek astronomer, in 432 BC, 500 years after the gold cone was made. And an alternative theory. We'll get the alternative theory after the break, folks. But don't forget, coming up right after today's show, we're going to have Lucky with Quantum Connections. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of today's Kev Baker Show already. And I tell you what, not bad for half an hour before the show, realising that today's special guest had cancelled. Well, not cancelled. That's wrong. Well wrong. I had got the date wrong. You see how I tried to almost shift the blame there onto Brad Olson. Brad, I apologise. It was all me. But Jimmy Jeans, his his light was on, but that doesn't always mean there's somebody home with Jimmy, you know. So I thought I'll drop him a message, and there he was, boom, drop of a hat, and it's hats we're talking about today, Jimmy. Yes, the magic hats. You like how I done that? Pretty cool, eh?
You are the king of the segue, let me tell you.
The quantum segue. We both go there and don't go there at the same time.
Well, as long as I observe it, it'll happen. I mean, if
make
you,
it so, number one.
it,
make it so. Observe it.
I observed it on the break, and I have passed you the secret documents.
Yes, this is the stuff that'll get you killed, folks. This is the stuff we can't tell you about this stuff. This is the stuff that really, really, really gets you in trouble. It doesn't really, but
the best part about it is you don't even have to mention that name that I mentioned during the break. You can let it stand alone as itself, because there it is, right there for everyone to see.
Give me a second now. Hang on now. There we go. The Nebra. You ready, folks? You ready for this? This came from our secret source that we can't name because, like I say, me and Jimmy would get taken out. But this is from the World History Encyclopedia, Keeper of Secrets, and it's called the Nebra Sky Disk. In ancient. I like that, the Keeper of Secrets, man. That should be like a degree in the Freemasons, shouldn't it? Like when you get to 31 degree, you're the Keeper of the Secrets.
It should be. You know, hey, I got some good news, too. I didn't tell you. Guess what? I made 33rd degree of the Chilluminati.
Nice, dude. How did you get that? Was that like a certain degree of hammock? Kind of lying?
The right angle of the dangle is super important.
Oh, the angle of the dangle means everything, Jimmy. It's lost on some people.
It does, and you know, you could miss it by that
much. Not the power of the punch, it's the angle of the dangle.
You could miss it by that much and find out that it costs extra.
Jimmy, if you miss it, like I say, you can miss it by a millimeter. You might as well miss it by a mile, dude. If you ain't in the spot, my friend.
You got that right, buddy.
Exactly. And you know how I know that? Because it's all written on an ancient map of stars, ladies and gentlemen. It is. No, we're not lying. Come and see here, look. It says the Nebra Sky Disk. And again, listen, I don't know if I'm just here on a different timeline, if I've evacuated my old spacesuit and come into a new one, but this is something I've not heard of. Again, either that or dementia is setting in, and it's like learning everything all over again. It's great, isn't it? The simulation, it just keeps on giving.
Well, you were correct at the beginning of the show when you said you never knew what was going to happen tonight on this show, and there you go. You learned about some Scottish history, the dunce, and now the Nebra Sky Disk.
Exactly, and we're going to finish up with Australian hobbits, only on the Kev Baker Show.
Wait.
Exactly. So it says here, the Nebra Sky Disk is one of the most fascinating, and some would say controversial, archaeological finds in recent years. Dated to 1600 BCE, this bronze disc has a diameter of 32 centimetres, about the size of a vinyl LP, and weighs around 2 kilograms. You know, Jimmy, part of me thinks that these people back in the Bronze Age, they were told, they had a foreman that said, listen, our whole purpose on the planet right now is to create stuff, make things, and confuse the bejingles out of Baker and Jeans thousands of years from now. We want to make the simulation a little bit interesting. Throw some random stuff in there. Well,
I'll just say, it's happening right now.
Maybe that's what the simulation was back then. It was just you were just here to make things that would be excavated in the future, James.
And that didn't exist until we looked at it.
Exactly.
Now, you are the quantum initiator. That's why. The quantum mechanic.
It sounds like a part of a time machine. Fresh out of quantum initiators. But I do have a new flux capacitor in, Jim. Mark III.
Fire the quantum initiators.
Oh, baby. But hey, listen, I've got a second-hand chronovisor, if that's any good to you. Yep.
Well, pull it out and let me see what's going on with it. But in the meantime, this disc will blow the minds of some.
It is to some. This disc can be loaded on a machine
I
Out
know
of it,
you
out
could.
of it,
That's
holographically appears the secrets of the universe, ladies and
maybe,
gentlemen.
dude. Maybe you slide that thing in the bottom of one of those hats, man, and all of a
Maybe
sudden,
that's the brim of the hat.
and this giant, pillar of
What if it's
light.
as simple as that, dude? What if it's just like a cookie a cookie cutting template? What if it's just something as simple as a frisbee? Somebody got maybe ate a mushroom or two one day back in the day, and they thought, well, we'll just shove some dots on it, and here we are, people spending entire scholarly careers looking at this thing, trying to decode this thing that was nothing merely more than a frisbee back in the day.
Well, all I know is that little way that they represent the Earth from far away looks a little bit like the Earth. I mean, the impressions that are there look like the continents, man. I mean, what are the odds? I guess he just banged it that way by
Well, it
accident.
says, let's see a little bit about what it says, right? It says it's painted blue, green, and embossed with a gold leaf as symbols, which appear to represent the crescent moon, the sun, or perhaps a full moon, stars, a curved gold band, interpreted as a sunboat, and a further gold band on the edge of the disc, which probably represents one of the horizons. Another gold band on the opposite side is missing. You see, there we go again. We think it's missing. Maybe it never ever had one. So it says this object was discovered in 1999 by treasure hunters using a metal detector at a prehistoric enclosure in the Mittelberg Hill near the town of Nebra in the Zegelrode forest, 111 miles southwest of Berlin, Germany. What was going on in Germany, folks who were building frisbees and hats? Unfortunately, the treasure hunters caused considerable damage to the disc during its crude removal from the ground, which included splintering its outer rim, losing one of the stars, and chipping a large piece of the gold disc. That's never going to play in one of those ancient IBMs if you try and plug it in. The looters subsequently attempted to sell the disc, along with 2 swords, 2 axes, a chisel, fragments of armlets, to local archaeologists. Now, they soon discovered, however, that by law, the objects belonged to the state of Sachsen-Anhalt, where they were unearthed, so they could not sell them legally. So in February 2003, they tried selling the disc to an antiquities collector in Switzerland for $400,000. However, the collector was actually working for the Swiss police as part of a sting operation to trap the group, which played out in the basement bar of the Hilton Hotel in Basel. Now, the group were subsequently arrested and the disc was recovered. It is now the property of the state of Sachsen-Anhalt. Pretty cool, eh? What is it exactly? It says many researchers believe that it's the oldest known realistic representation of the cosmos yet found. Perhaps a kind of astronomical calculation tool to determine planting and harvest times, used as an advanced astronomical clock. For thousands of years all across northern Europe, monuments were aligned to mark the summer and winter solstices. Stonehenge in Wiltshire, England, and Newgrange in Ireland are the most famous examples. As Bronze Age people were agricultural society, a method for finding out the time of year and thus the correct times for planting and harvesting crops was obviously vital. And one way of doing this was to identify the position of the sun at sunrise and sunset. Intrigued by the possibility of the Nebra disk as an astronomical, astrological device, Professor Wolfhard Schlosser, great German name, Wolfhard, love it, a big wolfie, of the University of Bochum, measured the angle of the dangle between the pair of the arcs on the either side of the disc, and he found it was 82 degrees. That's hitting the sweet spot, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you. So fascinatingly, Jimmy, and it is fascinating, at Mittelberg Hill, between the high midsummer sunset and the low midwinter sunset, the sun appears to travel around 82 degrees along the horizon. Ooh, I told you the angle of the dangle was essential. Now, this angle would vary from place to place. Further north, for example, it would be 90 degrees, and to the south, 70. But in a restricted belt of Central Europe, the sun's passage across the sky measures precisely 82 degrees. Schlosser concluded that the pair of arcs along the circumference of the Nebra disk did indeed depict the sun's solstices accurately for its location. This would suggest that the Bronze Age agricultural societies of Central Europe made sophisticated celestial measurements far earlier than had been accepted. Fascinating, Jimmy. I like it.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece, and some people have made full careers out of it. I mean, just taking the technology that we have today, lining it up with that, figuring out where things were then, and then extrapolating from that to make predictions, astronomical predictions.
Pretty cool, man.
It is cool, man, and I can't wait to get into these creatures down under, man, because I my Bush telegraph is vibrating right at this very moment, and I can tell you're on the brink of discovery with these little people.
We're on the precipice of it, Jimmy, but we're at the edge of the billabong. That's where we are, dude. We're about to go walkabout, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be throwing in a lot more Australian type stories along the way in the build up to the 15th of March, when we're going to be having that very, very epic show with the Strongs. But if we come over here, our first offering of an Australian kind this week, today.
Make sure you tell a friend the 15th, be here, and tell a friend to tell a friend, because I'm telling you right now, if you love titillating presentations, if you love finding out about new things, and you're the type of person doesn't think things are the way that they've been explained to us simpletons, then tune in, turn on, and find out with the quantum initiator, Kev Baker, on the 15th, right here, right now. And I am Mr. Right Now. I might not be Mr. Right, but I'm definitely Mr. Right Now. And right now, Kev Baker, let's go down under.
Indeed. Australian cryptozoologist claims he's encountered a real hobbit. Now pause. Let's stop. If you're new to the channel, new to listening to us, you might think, whoa, what is going on here? Well, this is something like the Giants. We've pursued kind of topics that have included stories and myths and lore from all over the world that talk about little people. So I know when you first hear this kind of material, it can be kind of, whoa, what on earth? Done it myself, listening to Coast years ago, talking about fairies and what I thought at the time was utterly out there nonsense. Keep an open mind. Let's see what this outback dude has to say to us about the little entity. Let's just call it a little entity, because what are hobbits? Ooh, are they good or are they bad? Most people know that the Hobbit movie trilogy was filmed in New Zealand. However, few people know that New Zealand's closest neighbour, Australia, is home to a mythical hobbit-like hairy man creature. Oh boy. Now, the hairy man, if you watched one of the streams that we done with Luna and Donnie and Jess from Down Under, and Ken was there as well, we had a picture on there of a hairy man. This is a very real thing, folks. So it says cryptozoologist Gary Oppett knew of the myth, but now he and his daughter aren't so sure it's a myth after a recent encounter with what appeared to be two 4-foot tall hairy men known as the Nimbinji. The what? The Nimbinji, ladies and gentlemen. Our daughter and her partner, when staying with us over Christmas, saw a Nimbinji, or a little hairy man, jump up onto our roof at 2 a.m. and from their description was exactly like a gibbon in all respects. Well then, it must have been a gibbon that Gary Oppett's daughter saw, since Oppett is also a zoologist who should know a gibbon from a Nimbinji. There you go, or a Nimbinji, sorry. So what was the creature again? It says, of course, there are no goblins here, and there have never been nocturnal and terrestrial gibbons known. They said that there were two of them calling quietly to one another. We have an audio recording of the calls and a coloured illustration of what they saw. It said if that's not enough, Oppet resides in Nimbin, a village in the far northeastern New South Wales known as the Rainbow region to an indigenous Bundjalung people who believe that the Nimbinji spirit people protect the area. Now, was the creature his daughter saw a physical manifestation of a Nimbinji spirit person? And I'm going to pull up the picture here and I'll drop it over to the audience at TFR in just a moment. But just to get back to the story here, it says it turns out that locals also speak of a Nimbinji that is a 3 to 4 foot tall, upright walking humanoid, not a robotic organoid or an organic robotoid, Jimmy, with brown hair and covered with dark brown or red hair. Wait a minute, that sounds like a hobbit, doesn't it? And it says it makes a sound like Aru, 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 interspread with a gurgling g. That's exactly how it sounds, folks. Cryptozoology researcher Andrew McGrath agrees that the Nimbinji looks like a hobbit, but it's not as articulate as J.R.R. Tolkien's beings, making grunts and howls instead of movie-worthy dialogue. Oppet knows his Nimbinji because he has had his own close encounters with them. It's twice at dusk I heard within 100 metres of the house a loud and powerful call. Ruff! That's exactly how it went as well. I'm totally with you. Trust me, folks, it went ruff. Didn't it, Jimmy? Yep. So to an animal that I could not identify. I did not observe the animal, but was fortunate enough to hear what I believe was its territorial call. Approximately 50 metres away from a near dry creek bed in a eucalypt forest, a series of some 90 loud bark-like calls rent the air. In the same locality, I had an animal approached within a few metres of me through dense vegetation, cracking two sticks together over several minutes, even as my dog barked at it, and then it silently disappeared. Could this be evidence of a hobbit living in my locality? That encounter was in 1996 in Cooneum Range bushland in the far northeastern New South Wales. Now, Oppet knew that this wasn't a yowie, since he's best known as one of Australia's leading experts on the country's Bigfoot. He also knows the approximate size of the Nimbinji after another encounter. It goes on to say, on Saturday the 9th of August 2008, Ray Westrap and I found a small child-sized footprints that led from a wallaby track on our property onto the Jones Road track, where it had walked through shallow water in the large depression, and I photographed them. Small childlike footprints for 3 metres were visible along the rut, and the 2 lumps of mud that had been scooped out and thrown down. This showed lots of activity of little feet walking back and forth along the rut, pushing mud into previous footprints. Okay, small child-sized footprints can easily be made by small barefoot child. Jones Road is an hour drive from Nimbin, so they could have been made by a similar creature to the one of Oppet's daughter's roof. It should be noted that Oppet has his own Australian Broadcasting Corporation radio wildlife and cryptozoology show, and the discovery of a cryptid, even one as obscure as a Nimbinji, would help the all-important ratings. Oh, you skeptics. However, he also had a good reputation, or has a good reputation as an expert in both. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt and hope he finds more concrete evidence of the Nimbinji so we can all yell, Aru, 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 Jimmy. Sarcophagi.
Sarcophagi.
Indeed.
Indeed.
What do you think,
Well,
Jim?
I
Now,
think
like I say, dude, like I say, no word of a lie, man. You can go and check out the streams that we done from Down Under, and Donnie has got a picture of an Aboriginal family just standing there, and then in the background, there's this. It's totally different, dude. It's like covered in hair. Small person. Weird, dude. Weird. It's just totally out of place, man.
it's crazy. I mean, there's so many of these anomalies around. You know, you have giants over here, and you have small people over there. You know, and there's some in between. I mean, man corn. I mean, just think of the regular size
Here
human.
you go, Jimmy. I'm going to show you the picture now. Check this out. Look at that.
Is it the missing link, man? Is this the missing link?
Well, check that out. Look at it.
I know. I see it. I'm just saying it might be the missing link instead of that pig bone they found over in they said there's the missing link between man and ape. This jawbone. It was a pig bone. Not that one. Not the pills. Not the what's it called? The Piltdown man. That was the supposedly their theory for evolution. So maybe they missed this guy over here. See, that's what I mean. They keep forgetting to look to Australia, and that's what's so killer about the 15th coming up, man. You're gonna be exposing some things from down under that may just change the face of how people think about where we come from and who it is exactly were our ancestors, and how long have we been around, and what is the tie, what it has to do with these rings, man.
So,
What's going on with these rings? You know, there's these rings like in the epic film and book series. That ring, if you had that ring on, The Hobbit, just the ring, man. I'm telling you, there's this ring on the hat, the ring of this plate, the circle, the ring. It all adds up, Kev. It all adds up.
maybe. Sometimes things don't add up and we just make them add up because we're determined to find patterns between anything.
That's because we're coincidence recognizers.
That doesn't always mean it means something.
It doesn't. That's exactly right. That's exactly the point. Being a coincidence recognizer is next level, man. Because look, you recognize coincidences, but the thing is they in and of themselves mean nothing. It's what you make it mean, ladies and gentlemen. That's how these mimetic engineering operations get started in the first place. It never has anything to do with the actual statement. It has to do with how it makes you feel and what you make it mean, and how you internalize and identify with the seductive character that's presented to you to disseminate that information. But that's what's great about the Kev Baker Show. He provides, you decide. We'll tell you what to think. But look, you could put all these things together and easily come up with a storyline that doesn't look anything like the one we've been told. And so if we're telling stories, the people in power are telling us stories. Well, let's tell our own story about how things came about. Initiated right here with the quantum initiator.
Indeed. So what have you got planned coming up on your show quickly, Jim, before we sign off for today?
Tomorrow, 6 Pacific, Aftermath.fm, Dave Chappelle and why he won't wear the dress and what the dress actually means. And are there organic robotoids? And can you be replaced? We'll find out, Kev.
The organic robotoids. On that thought, ladies and gentlemen, let me sign off for today and hand over the chalice of truth. Truth Frequency Radio to Lucky and Quantum Connections. Now, I'll be back tomorrow with Scotty Lopez, so please join us for that one. I'm just going to quickly look at the schedule, make sure my dates aren't all off a kilter again. Let me just make sure here. For the music kicks in.
Be like a conehead, consume mass quantities.
No, that's good. We're good. It's Scott tomorrow night, folks. We're good to go. I've got my dates right. So far, so good. Next Thursday, we're going to have a new guest on the show called Mercedes. We're going to be getting into some real deep woo on that one. I hope you can join me for that. But please be here, same time, same place tomorrow for more from the Kev Baker Show. There's the music. There it is, folks. Have a great day. Have a good night. Wherever you are, make it TFR. And Denny, touch that dial. We're out of here.